She lived in a small town where life moved slowly. The streets were lined with tiny shops, and the mornings were often filled with the smell of fresh bread and the chatter of neighbors. She had always been quiet, blending into the background, working hard to make ends meet. Her hands were calloused from daily chores, but whenever she sat at her piano at home, those same hands became instruments of beauty and magic. Music was her secret world, the place where she felt alive and free. She had never studied at a music school, and most people thought her dreams of playing at a grand stage were impossible. Yet, every day after finishing her work, she would sit by the window with her piano, practicing for hours. The soft sunlight would fall on her fingers as they moved across the keys, and the notes would fill her tiny living room, creating melodies that seemed larger than the room itself. Music gave her comfort and hope, a reminder that even in her ordinary life, she could touch something extraordinary. Despite her talent, she was used to being underestimated. People in her town often commented on her simple appearance and quiet nature. They didn't know about the hours she spent perfecting her pieces or the way she could make a piano sing. She rarely shared her passion openly because she had learned early on that the world wasn't always kind to those who didn't fit the mold. Still, she held on to her dream quietly, imagining the day she could show the world what she could do. Her neighbors knew her as someone helpful and kind. She often assisted elderly people with groceries and helped children with their lessons. But when it came to music, she kept her gift private. Only a few close friends had ever heard her play, and their reactions were always filled with awe and surprise. They would ask how someone so ordinary-looking could produce such extraordinary music. She would simply smile, happy that her music spoke for her. One day, she learned about a prestigious piano audition in the city. The idea made her heart race. It was a chance to step into a world she had only dreamed of. The audition was known for discovering hidden talent, but it was also intimidating. People from well-known music schools would be there, dressed sharply and playing with a confidence she had never experienced outside her home. For a moment, she hesitated. Could she, someone who had never performed in front of strangers, really compete? After some thought, she decided she couldn't let fear stop her. She spent the following weeks practicing tirelessly. Each day, she played with more emotion, focusing on every detail of the pieces she would perform. Her fingers danced over the keys, sometimes trembling with nerves, sometimes flowing effortlessly. She imagined the moment she would walk into the audition hall, feeling the weight of everyone's eyes on her. But she also imagined the music filling the room, changing how people saw her. Her life outside music continued as usual. She worked long hours managing daily responsibilities, but now each task carried a sense of purpose. Every chore, every moment of waiting or walking through the quiet streets, became a small preparation for her performance. Even her dreams at night were filled with piano keys and melodies, guiding her through the final touches of her practice. Music was no longer just her escape, it had become her mission. As the audition day approached, she felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. She packed her simple bag, making sure she had everything she needed. Her clothes were modest, not flashy or designed to impress, because she believed her music would speak louder than appearances. Still, she knew she would have to face judgment based on looks and background. She reminded herself that talent couldn't be hidden forever, and that this was her chance to step into the light. On the morning of the audition, she left her home early. The streets of her town were quiet, and the sun was just rising, painting everything in shades of gold. She walked steadily, carrying with her years of practice and countless quiet hours of dedication. As she approached the city, the buildings grew taller and the streets busier. The energy of the city was overwhelming at first, but she focused on her goal. She imagined the piano waiting for her in the audition hall, ready to reveal her secret to the world. When she arrived at the venue, she saw the other participants. They were confident, some chatting casually, others reviewing their sheet music. Many wore expensive clothes, and their presence seemed to fill the room with authority. She felt a twinge of doubt, remembering how simple she looked in comparison. But she took a deep breath, reminding herself that none of that mattered. What mattered was the music she had worked so hard to perfect. She waited in line, listening to the sounds of other auditions. The room was filled with impressive performances, fast, precise, and polished. Some participants glanced at her and smirked, whispering among themselves. She noticed the dismissive looks, the assumptions made just from her appearance. Could have shaken her, but instead, it strengthened her resolve. She reminded herself that music couldn't be judged by looks, and soon everyone would see her true ability. While waiting, she closed her eyes and imagined the piano beneath her fingers. She felt the familiar weight of the keys, the flow of notes, and the connection to the music. She remembered the small moments at home, the hours spent perfecting a single passage, and the joy she felt when a melody finally sounded right. That feeling was hers alone, and it gave her courage. No matter what anyone thought of her, she knew the music inside her was real. Finally, her name was called. Her heart raced, but she walked forward with calm determination. The audition hall was large and imposing, with bright lights and an audience of judges who looked experienced and serious. She took her seat at the piano, feeling the smooth surface of the keys under her fingertips. For a moment, she hesitated, aware of the eyes watching her every move. But then she remembered all the practice, all the quiet evenings spent in her living room, and she let that confidence guide her. She positioned her fingers, took a deep breath, and allowed the first note to flow. It was soft but clear, a note filled with the years of dedication she had put into her music. As she continued, the melody grew, carrying emotion and precision that surprised even her. Each chord, each movement of her fingers, told a story of someone who had lived a simple life but dreamed in extraordinary ways. The sound filled the room, reaching the back rows and drawing every ear toward her. Even before she played the full piece, some in the audience began to notice something remarkable. The energy in the room shifted. Those who had smirked and whispered fell silent, their expressions changing from judgment to surprise. They had expected something ordinary, but what they heard was far beyond their assumptions. She had always known her music was special, but hearing it resonate in such a large hall filled her with awe as well. As she finished, the final note hung in the air for a moment before fading. The room was quiet, the kind of silence that only comes when everyone is caught completely off guard. She looked up, meeting the eyes of the judges and participants, sensing their disbelief. For the first time, she felt seen. Not just for her appearance, but for her talent, her passion, and her dedication. It was a moment she had dreamed of, a moment that proved that her music could speak louder than any ridicule or doubt. Walking away from the piano, she felt a mix of relief and pride. She had faced a room full of skeptics and had let her music do the talking. For the first time, she realized that being simple in life did not mean being small in talent or in dreams. That realization, stronger than any applause, gave her a sense of purpose she had never felt before. She knew that this was only the beginning, and that the world would never see her in the same way again. The morning of the audition was bright but tense. She arrived at the grand hall early, hoping to find a quiet corner to gather her thoughts. The building was massive, with tall windows that let in sunlight, casting long shadows across the polished floors. The air was filled with the faint scent of wood and polish, mixed with the nervous energy of participants. Everywhere she looked, people moved with purpose, carrying music sheets, tuning instruments, and speaking in confident tones. She felt a mixture of excitement and fear, but she reminded herself that her music had brought her this far. As she waited, she observed the other participants. They seemed so sure of themselves, walking tall and exchanging small talk about their performances. Many had expensive instruments and shiny shoes, while she simply carried her sheet music and wore modest clothes. Some glanced at her with curiosity, others with amusement, whispering to one another. It was clear that they assumed she would not measure up. The laughter and sideways glances were uncomfortable, but she tried not to let them distract her. She had prepared for this, and the piano would be her voice. The hall started filling with more people, and the sound of warm-up notes echoed through the space. Some played fast, precise scales, others struck dramatic chords to grab attention. She watched quietly, feeling both intimidated and inspired. Each note reminded her of her own practice sessions at home, where the small room had been her entire audience. She remembered the countless evenings she had spent perfecting each movement, each chord, until it sounded just right. That memory gave her strength. When her name was finally called, she felt a surge of nervousness. She walked forward slowly, her heart pounding in her chest. The other participants glanced at her, some smirking, some rolling their eyes. She could hear whispers. Does she really think she can play here? She looked so ordinary. She held her head high, reminding herself that they knew nothing about her talent. She had come here to prove herself, and the moment had finally arrived. She took a deep breath and sat at the piano. The keys felt familiar beneath her fingers, and the notes seemed to welcome her. She glanced at the judges, who looked serious and imposing, their eyes focused and critical. For a moment, she doubted herself, wondering if she could perform perfectly in such a tense environment. But then she thought of all the hours she had spent practicing, the sacrifices she had made, and the quiet determination that had brought her here. She exhaled slowly, letting the calm wash over her. As she began to play, the first notes were soft and deliberate, filling the room with a delicate melody. The audience and judges leaned in, listening carefully. The sound was different from the loud, showy performances around her. It was subtle, refined, and filled with emotion. With each passing moment, the music grew, showing the depth of her understanding and the strength of her skill. She poured her heart into every note, feeling every chord and transition deeply. Some of the other participants, who had been whispering and smirking, now paused to listen. Their expressions changed from amusement to surprise. They had expected a weak, amateur performance from someone so simple-looking, but what they heard was exceptional. The room seemed to hold its breath as her fingers danced across the keys, creating a melody that was both beautiful and powerful. The notes resonated in the air, touching everyone present in a way that words could not. She continued to play, losing herself in the music. Her surroundings faded away, leaving only the piano and the melody. Every twist and turn of the piece showcased her skill, but more importantly, it revealed her passion. The judges leaned forward, scribbling notes, their faces reflecting genuine admiration. She could see some participants exchanging glances of disbelief. It was clear they had underestimated her, and now they were witnessing a talent that could not be ignored. As the performance reached its climax, the room was filled with a rich, harmonious sound that seemed almost magical. Each chord struck with precision and emotion, holding the audience captive. Some were on the edge of their seats, completely absorbed. The judges' eyes were fixed on her, and even the skeptical participants had gone silent. She played with confidence, knowing that this moment was the culmination of years of practice and dedication. The final note lingered in the air, soft and lingering, before fading into silence. For a moment, the hall remained still, as if everyone was processing what had just happened. Then, slowly, the room erupted in applause. It started quietly with a few claps, and grew louder as more people joined in. She looked up, surprised by the intensity of the reaction. The laughter and mockery from before had vanished, replaced by awe and respect. She smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment that went beyond any recognition. This was more than an audition, it was a statement. She had shown that appearances could be deceiving, that talent and dedication could surpass assumptions. Her music had spoken louder than any words, and in that moment, she felt truly seen. The judges approached her, offering praise and encouragement, and she realized that this was the beginning of something new. As she left the stage, she noticed the other participants looking at her differently. Some avoided her gaze, others nodded in acknowledgement. She no longer felt like the simple woman they had assumed she was. Instead, she was a musician, someone who had shared a part of her soul with the world and been recognized for it. The experience filled her with confidence and hope, knowing that her life and her dreams could expand far beyond the small town she had always called home. After the audition, she took a quiet moment to herself, sitting on a bench outside the hall. The sun was shining, and the city seemed to glow with possibility. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, the long hours of practice, the moments of doubt, and the determination to keep going. She realized that the music had not only revealed her talent to others, but had also strengthened her belief in herself. Walking back through the city streets, she felt a sense of peace and pride. The experience had changed her, and she knew that this was only the beginning. Opportunities that once seemed impossible now felt within reach. She had faced judgment and ridicule and had emerged stronger, proving to herself and to everyone else that true talent could not be ignored. Her story was just starting, and she was ready to embrace whatever came next with courage and grace. After her initial performance, the woman walked back to a quiet corner of the hall to catch her breath. The applause had been overwhelming, but she knew the audition was not over yet. There were more pieces to play, more challenges ahead, and the audience was still full of sharp eyes and curious minds. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the memory of the first few notes settle in her mind. The music had flowed naturally, but now she needed to stay focused for the next piece, one that was even more complicated and demanding. She glanced around the room, noticing the other participants preparing for their turns. Some were practicing scales aggressively, their fingers moving at lightning speed. Others were nervously glancing at the judges, muttering under their breath. A few of them had started whispering about her first performance. From what she could catch, the words were filled with surprise and disbelief. Some participants shook their heads, clearly struggling to understand how someone so unassuming could produce such a powerful sound. She felt a small smile of satisfaction. Her music had already changed their expectations, but she knew the real test was still ahead. She picked up her sheet music and studied it carefully. The next piece was longer and more intricate, demanding both technical skill and emotional depth. It required precision in every note, a careful balance of rhythm and dynamics, and an ability to convey emotion through subtle nuances. She had practiced it countless times at home, but performing in front of an audience added pressure she had never felt before. She reminded herself to breathe, to trust her training, and to let the music guide her. When it was her turn again, she walked to the piano with steady steps. The hall was now quieter, the audience attentive, and the judge's eyes focused on her every move. She placed her fingers on the keys, feeling their smooth surface, and took a deep breath. She began to play slowly, letting each note settle before moving to the next. The melody unfolded gracefully, delicate at times and bold at others. Her fingers moved with confidence, translating the emotion she had stored inside into every chord. As she continued, she noticed the audience leaning forward, captivated by the beauty and complexity of her performance. The earlier whispers and smirks were gone, replaced by silence and intense focus. Even the judges, who had seen countless talented musicians, seemed impressed by her ability to convey such depth and feeling. She felt a surge of determination, knowing that this was her chance to prove not just her skill, but also her heart and dedication. The piece became more challenging as it progressed. Rapid runs of notes, intricate fingerings, and sudden shifts in tempo tested her every ability. Her hands moved swiftly yet carefully, guided by muscle memory and intuition. She felt a connection to the music that transcended technique. It was as if the piano and her were speaking the same language. Each chord carried emotion, each passage told a story, and the room was filled with a sound that was both powerful and gentle. Midway through the performance, she made a small adjustment in timing, allowing a pause to emphasize a particularly emotional section. The audience reacted instantly, their attention fully captured. The judges scribbled notes, nodding subtly, their expressions showing genuine admiration. Some participants, who had once glanced at her with doubt, now watched in amazement, unable to hide their astonishment. She felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that her music was breaking down the walls of skepticism. She continued with a series of crescendos, building intensity without losing control. The piece demanded not only technical skill but also emotional maturity, and she responded with confidence. Her fingers glided over the keys, sometimes striking chords with boldness, sometimes caressing them with delicacy. The hall seemed to hold its breath, the energy vibrating through every listener. She could feel their engagement, their surprise, their awe, and it fueled her determination to give the best performance she could. As she neared the conclusion, the music became even more dramatic. The final passages were challenging, requiring both speed and accuracy. She pushed herself, allowing the emotion she had carried for years to pour through every note. The audience was completely silent now, hanging on each sound. Even the most skeptical judges could not hide their astonishment. She had transformed the room, proving that talent could not be judged by appearance, and that determination and passion could overcome any doubt. Finally, the last note rang out, held in the air for a moment before fading. The silence that followed was almost as powerful as the music itself. The hall seemed to exhale collectively, as if everyone was taking in the impact of what they had just witnessed. Then, applause erupted, stronger and more heartfelt than before. It was not just polite clapping. It was a genuine acknowledgement of her skill, her courage, and her artistry. She looked up, feeling a mixture of relief, pride, and joy. The recognition she had longed for had finally arrived. The judges approached her after the performance, offering words of praise and encouragement. Their comments were filled with respect, highlighting not just her technical skill, but also her ability to convey emotion and connect with the audience. Some of the participants who had doubted her earlier nodded or smiled, acknowledging the truth they had once ignored. She felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The music had spoken louder than any words or judgments, proving that her talent was undeniable. As she left the piano, she took a moment to reflect on the journey that had brought her here. From quiet evenings spent practicing in her small room to standing in the grand hall with hundreds of eyes watching her, she had stayed true to her passion. The ridicule and doubt she had faced only strengthened her determination, and the success she experienced now was a reward for her perseverance. She realized that every challenge she had faced had prepared her for this moment, shaping her into the musician she had become. Walking back through the hall, she noticed the changed expressions on the faces of those around her. The participants who had mocked her looked humbled, some avoiding her gaze, others offering quiet smiles of respect. She had not only demonstrated her ability but had also challenged assumptions, showing that greatness could come from unexpected places. The experience left her feeling empowered, confident that she could face future challenges with the same grace and resilience. Outside the hall, the sunlight was warm and inviting. She paused for a moment, taking in the city's energy, feeling a sense of possibility she had never known before. The audition had been more than a test of skill. It had been a testament to her courage, dedication, and love for music. She understood that this was just the beginning of her journey, that opportunities and recognition would continue to grow, and that her talent could inspire others as it had inspired herself. She felt ready to embrace whatever came next, carrying with her the knowledge that her music could touch hearts and break down barriers, one note at a time. The woman felt a quiet excitement as she returned to the audition hall for the next round. The earlier performances had changed the atmosphere. The whispers and smirks that once surrounded her were gone. People now watched her with curiosity, some with genuine interest, and others with subtle admiration. She could feel the tension in the air, a mix of anticipation and surprise. Her first two pieces had already left a mark, but she knew the next performance would test her in ways she hadn't experienced yet. She took a deep breath, walking toward the piano once more. Her hands were steady, though her heart still beat quickly. She reminded herself that she had prepared for this, that every moment of practice, every long evening of focus, had brought her to this point. The judges were waiting, their eyes sharp and attentive, ready to evaluate every movement. She felt their gaze, but she did not let it distract her. She was ready to let the music speak for itself. As she began to play, the first notes filled the hall with a soft, mesmerizing sound. The piece was slower at first, demanding careful attention to every note and every pause. She focused on precision, allowing each chord to resonate fully before moving on. The audience listened in silence, drawn into the subtle power of her performance. She could feel their attention, their curiosity, and it gave her strength. She played not just with skill, but with emotion, letting the story of the music unfold naturally. The piece began to shift in tempo, requiring a delicate balance of speed and accuracy. Her fingers moved quickly yet gracefully across the keys, each note carefully placed, each passage conveying a sense of feeling and depth. The audience was captivated, leaning forward in their seats, unable to look away. Even the judges, who had seen countless talented musicians, seemed impressed by her ability to maintain control while expressing so much emotion. She felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that her dedication was evident in every note. As she progressed, the music demanded technical skill and emotional interpretation at the same time. Rapid runs of notes, complex chords, and sudden shifts in rhythm required her full concentration. She played with confidence, trusting her practice and experience. Her hands moved almost instinctively, guided by years of quiet study and passion. The melody seemed to flow effortlessly, each phrase connecting to the next in a seamless, expressive journey. She felt herself lost in the music, every part of her focused on the sound she was creating. The audience could sense the intensity of her connection with the piano. There was a raw honesty in her playing, a sincerity that could not be faked. The judges nodded subtly, taking notes while clearly impressed. Some participants watched with wide eyes, unable to hide their astonishment. They had expected a simple performance, but what they were hearing was extraordinary. The room seemed to transform with every note, the air filled with energy and emotion, as if the music itself was telling a story that words could not capture. Midway through the piece, she introduced a section that required a dramatic change in dynamics. Soft, delicate passages shifted suddenly to bold, powerful chords, demanding control and precision. She played each transition perfectly, allowing the music to breathe and flow naturally. The audience responded instinctively, leaning in to catch every nuance. The judges seemed particularly focused, noting the way she could convey emotion through technical mastery. Her confidence grew, knowing that she was not only meeting the challenge but exceeding expectations. The piece became even more demanding as it approached the climax. Complex patterns, fast sequences, and emotional highs required her complete attention. She played with determination and grace, letting the music guide her hands. Every note, every chord, every pause carried meaning. The audience was silent, absorbed in the performance, completely captivated by the story unfolding on the piano. She felt a sense of connection with every listener, as if they were all part of the music itself. As she reached the final passages, the energy in the hall built to a crescendo. The music was bold and dramatic, yet controlled and precise. She allowed herself to pour all her feeling into the performance, her hands moving fluidly over the keys. The judges were clearly impressed, their expressions showing both surprise and admiration. Even the participants who had doubted her before were now watching in awe, unable to deny the brilliance of her skill. The moment was powerful, filled with a sense of achievement and fulfillment. Finally, she struck the last chord, letting it linger in the air. The silence that followed was almost tangible, as if everyone was holding their breath, absorbing the impact of the performance. Then slowly applause began. It started with a few claps, then grew louder, until the entire hall was cheering. The sound was warm and genuine, a recognition not just of technical skill, but of passion, dedication, and courage. She looked up, smiling, feeling a mixture of pride and relief. Her music had moved people in ways she had only dreamed of. The judges approached her afterward, offering words of praise and encouragement. They spoke of her technical ability, her emotional expression, and her unique interpretation. Some participants who had previously mocked her now nodded with respect, acknowledging the talent they had once underestimated. She felt a sense of validation, knowing that her hard work and dedication had been recognized. The music had spoken louder than any words, breaking down assumptions and creating a space for admiration and respect. As she stepped away from the piano, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. From long hours of practice in her small room to performing in front of a large audience, she had remained committed to her passion. The ridicule and doubt she had faced had only strengthened her resolve, and the success she now experienced was a reward for her perseverance. She felt empowered, confident that her music could continue to touch hearts and inspire others. Walking through the hall, she noticed the changed atmosphere. The energy was different now, filled with respect and appreciation. Participants who had once looked down on her were now observing with new understanding. The experience had not only demonstrated her skill but had also challenged perceptions and assumptions. She felt a sense of accomplishment, knowing that she had not only succeeded in her performance, but had also shown that talent and dedication could overcome prejudice and doubt. Outside the hall, the sunlight bathed the city streets in a warm glow. She paused for a moment, taking in the view and feeling a sense of possibility. The audition had been more than a test of skill. It had been a testament to her courage, her commitment, and her love for music. She understood that this was only the beginning of her journey, and that opportunities and recognition would continue to grow. She felt ready to embrace whatever came next, carrying with her the knowledge that her music could reach and inspire anyone who listened. The woman returned to the piano for the next and final round, feeling a mix of nervousness and excitement. She had already impressed many with her performances, but she knew that this piece was the most challenging of all. It demanded speed, precision, and a deep emotional connection. The audience and judges had watched her every move so far, and now their attention was completely focused on her. She took a deep breath, letting the familiar feeling of the keys beneath her fingers calm her nerves. As she began to play, the first notes were delicate, almost whispering across the hall. The melody was soft, yet full of emotion, immediately capturing the listener's attention. She felt the music flow naturally, her fingers moving with confidence. Each chord carried a story, each pause a moment of reflection. The audience was silent, completely absorbed in the sound. Even the judges leaned forward, watching with keen interest, noting every detail of her technique and expression. The piece quickly became more complex, with rapid sequences that tested her speed and accuracy. Her hands moved swiftly yet gracefully, each note precise and deliberate. The audience was mesmerized, unable to look away. Some participants, who had previously doubted her, now watched with awe. The sound of the piano filled the hall, resonating with clarity and power. Every note seemed to tell a story, drawing the listeners deeper into the music. She focused on the emotional aspect of the performance as much as the technical. The music required her to convey joy, sorrow, tension, and release, all within the span of a few minutes. She allowed herself to feel the emotions deeply, letting them guide her fingers across the keys. The audience could sense her sincerity, and the judges nodded in appreciation. This was more than just a test of skill. It was an opportunity to connect with people through the universal language of music. As the piece reached its midpoint, she introduced a series of rapid, intricate passages. The complexity of the notes required her full attention, but she played with confidence and ease. Her fingers moved in perfect coordination, producing a sound that was both powerful and elegant. The audience was completely captivated, leaning forward in anticipation of each phrase. The judges took notes, their expressions reflecting genuine admiration. Even the skeptical participants could not hide their surprise. The music shifted suddenly, moving from a delicate melody to bold, dramatic chords. The contrast was striking, demanding not only technical skill but emotional depth. She played with intensity, feeling each note as she struck it. The hall seemed to vibrate with the energy of the performance. The audience responded instinctively, drawn into the emotional highs and lows. The judges watched closely, clearly impressed by her ability to balance technical mastery with expressive interpretation. As she approached the climax of the piece, the music became even more demanding. Fast runs, intricate patterns, and sudden shifts in tempo required her complete focus. She played with determination, allowing the music to guide her. Each note was executed perfectly, each phrase flowing seamlessly into the next. The audience was silent, completely absorbed in the performance. Even those who had doubted her earlier were now captivated, unable to ignore the talent and passion she displayed. The final passages were the most challenging, requiring speed, precision, and control. She pushed herself to the limit, her fingers flying across the keys with confidence and grace. The emotional intensity of the music reached its peak, filling the hall with a powerful, resonant sound. The judges watched in awe, their expressions reflecting amazement and respect. The audience was on the edge of their seats, completely enthralled. She could feel the energy in the room, and it fueled her determination to give her best performance yet. As the last notes rang out, she held them, letting the sound linger in the air before fading. The silence that followed was profound, as if everyone was holding their breath, absorbing the impact of what they had just witnessed. Then, slowly, the applause began. It started quietly, with a few claps, then grew louder, until the entire hall was cheering. The sound was genuine and enthusiastic, a recognition of her skill, passion, and dedication. She looked up, smiling, feeling a deep sense of pride and accomplishment. The judges approached her, offering words of praise and encouragement. They commented on her technical ability, her emotional expression, and her unique interpretation of the piece. Some participants who had previously mocked her now nodded with respect, acknowledging her talent. She felt a sense of validation, knowing that her hard work and perseverance had been recognized. The music had spoken louder than any words, breaking down assumptions and earning her genuine admiration. She stepped away from the piano, taking a moment to reflect on the journey that had brought her here. From quiet evenings spent practicing alone to performing in front of a large audience, she had remained committed to her passion. The ridicule and doubt she had faced had only strengthened her resolve, and the success she now experienced was a reward for her dedication. She felt empowered, confident that her music could continue to touch hearts and inspire others. Walking through the hall, she noticed the changed atmosphere. The energy was different now, filled with respect and appreciation. Participants who had once doubted her were now observing with new understanding. The experience had not only demonstrated her skill but had also challenged assumptions, showing that talent and dedication could overcome prejudice and doubt. She felt a sense of fulfillment, knowing that she had not only succeeded in her performance but had also inspired others. Outside the hall, the sunlight was warm and bright. She paused for a moment, taking in the city streets, feeling a sense of possibility and hope. The audition had been more than a test of skill. It had been a testament to her courage, dedication, and love for music. She realized that this was only the beginning of her journey, and that opportunities and recognition would continue to grow. She felt ready to embrace whatever came next, carrying with her the knowledge that her music could reach and move anyone who listened. After the final performance, the woman felt a mix of relief and excitement. The applause had been overwhelming, and the admiration in the room was clear. She had faced judgment, ridicule, and doubt, yet she had proven herself through her music. Now, she could finally take a moment to breathe and reflect on what had just happened. The experience had been more than an audition. It had been a journey of courage, perseverance, and self-belief. The judges gathered around her, speaking kindly and sincerely. They praised her technical skill, the emotion she conveyed, and the depth of her musical understanding. Their words were encouraging, recognizing not only her performance that day but also the dedication and practice that had brought her to this point. She listened carefully, absorbing every comment and letting it sink in. It felt incredible to be seen and acknowledged for her talent, something she had quietly nurtured for so many years. Some participants who had previously dismissed her now approached, offering respectful nods or quiet words of congratulations. She could sense their genuine surprise and newfound respect. It was a reminder that appearances could be deceiving, and that talent and passion often lay hidden beneath simple exteriors. The room had transformed. What had started as skepticism and mockery had turned into admiration and recognition. She smiled inwardly, realizing that she had not only proven herself to the judges, but also changed the way others saw her. Leaving the stage, she walked through the hall, feeling a sense of pride and accomplishment. The audience members who had witnessed her performances looked at her with admiration. Some had tears in their eyes, touched by the emotion and beauty of her music. She had connected with them in a way that went beyond words, creating a shared experience that lingered in their hearts. It was a powerful reminder of why she loved music and why she had dedicated so much time and effort to her craft. Outside the hall, the city streets were filled with light and warmth. She took a deep breath, feeling the sun on her face and the energy of the bustling streets. The world felt larger and more inviting now, full of possibilities she had never imagined. She thought about the journey that had led her here, the countless hours of practice, the quiet moments of doubt, and the determination to keep going despite challenges. Each step had been worth it, and now she was reaping the rewards of her perseverance. As she walked, she reflected on how the experience had changed her. She had faced fear and uncertainty, yet she had remained true to herself and her passion. The ridicule and judgment that once felt so intimidating now seemed distant and unimportant. She had discovered a strength within herself, a confidence that came from knowing she had given her best and succeeded. It was a feeling that would stay with her, guiding her in future challenges and opportunities. The days following the audition brought unexpected opportunities. Teachers and mentors approached her, offering guidance, support, and invitations to perform. She was invited to participate in concerts, workshops, and even recordings. The recognition she had longed for was finally coming to fruition. It was thrilling, but she remained grounded, remembering the quiet dedication that had brought her this far. She continued to practice diligently, knowing that talent alone was not enough. Discipline, focus, and passion were equally important. Her story began to inspire others. People who had underestimated her talent now spoke of her with admiration. Young musicians looked up to her as an example of perseverance and courage. She shared her experiences and encouraged others to pursue their passions, emphasizing that success often comes to those who work quietly and persistently, even when the world doubts them. Her music had not only changed her own life but was beginning to influence the lives of others as well. As she prepared for future performances, she remained humble and focused. She understood that each opportunity was a chance to grow, learn, and connect with others through music. She approached every performance with the same dedication, ensuring that each note carried emotion, precision, and heart. The memory of the audition, the disbelief of others, and the joy of proving herself became a source of inspiration, fueling her ongoing journey as a musician. Looking back, she realized how far she had come. From a quiet, unassuming life in a small town to performing on stages where her talent was recognized and celebrated, the transformation was profound. Yet, despite the change in circumstances, she remained true to herself. Her humility, kindness, and dedication to music had not wavered. She understood that success was not just about recognition, but about staying committed to one's passion and sharing it authentically with the world. The experience also taught her about the power of perseverance. Challenges, ridicule, and doubt had once seemed insurmountable, but by staying focused and believing in herself, she had overcome them. She understood that many people hide extraordinary talents, and that assumptions based on appearance or background can be misleading. Her journey was a testament to the idea that true talent and dedication are often hidden, waiting for the right moment to shine. As time went on, she continued to perform, inspire, and grow as a musician. Each performance was an opportunity to share her passion, connect with audiences, and express the depth of her musical understanding. She remained grateful for the challenges she had faced, knowing that they had strengthened her resolve and shaped her into the artist she had become. Her life had changed, not only in terms of recognition and opportunities, but also in confidence, self-belief, and a deeper connection to her art. Her story became an example for many, a reminder that talent and dedication can overcome doubt and prejudice, and that perseverance and passion can lead to remarkable achievements. She continued to practice, perform, and inspire, living a life filled with music, purpose, and fulfillment. The journey that had begun with quiet practice in a small room had led to stages, applause, and recognition, but more importantly, it had led to self-discovery, resilience, and the realization that her music could touch hearts and change lives. In the end, she understood that the true reward was not just the applause or recognition, but the journey itself. The music, the dedication, the challenges, and the triumphs all shaped her into a stronger, more confident, and more compassionate person. She had shown that even a simple, unassuming individual could achieve greatness through perseverance, passion, and unwavering belief in oneself. And as she looked forward to the future, she knew that the music would always guide her, carrying her to new heights and allowing her to continue inspiring those who listened.